You babied those tomato plants all season. You bought the best varieties. You fed them the expensive fertilizer. You sprayed for blight the moment you saw a spot on a leaf. And what did you get? A handful of cracked, mealy, golf ball-sized tomatoes, and a plant that looked like it gave up on life by August. Meanwhile, somewhere in Lancaster County, an Amish grandmother is pulling tomatoes the size of softballs off a vine that is still green, still healthy, and still producing well into October. No spray truck, no fungicide, no chemical fertilizer, just soil, water, and a way of growing that most of us have completely forgotten. I know how that feels because I lived it for over 20 years. I could grow a tomato. I just could not grow a great tomato. Not consistently. Not the kind that makes you stop mid-bite and wonder why nothing at the grocery store has ever tasted like this. Then I saw what the Amish were doing, and I realized the problem was never my tomatoes. It was my entire approach. And today, I am going to show you exactly what they do differently. No gimmicks, no products to buy. Just 4 honest practices that changed everything for me, and they will change everything for you too. About 12 years ago, I was driving through Holmes County, Ohio, which is the heart of Amish country up there, and I stopped at a roadside stand. The woman selling was Amish, probably in her 60s, and the tomatoes on her table were the most beautiful I had ever seen. Deep red, heavy, not a single crack or blemish, each one easily the size of a softball, some bigger. I asked her what variety she grew. She told me. It was Brandywine. Same variety I had been growing for years with half the results. So I asked her what her secret was. She looked at me like it was the strangest question anyone had ever asked, and said, "There is no secret. We just take care of the ground, and the ground takes care of the tomato." That answer frustrated me at first. It felt too simple, almost dismissive. But over the next several years, as I studied and visited Amish gardens across Pennsylvania and Ohio, I realized she was not being evasive. She was being completely accurate. The Amish do not have a secret. They have a system. And every part of it is built on one idea that most modern gardeners have drifted away from. The Amish have a phrase, "Mache es gut, mache es gut." It means do it well. Not do it fast. Not do it with the newest product. Do it well. In the garden, that means every task is done thoroughly, patiently, and in the right order. You do not skip steps. You do not take shortcuts. You do the work properly, and the results take care of themselves. That mindset runs through everything I am about to show you. These 4 steps are not complicated, but they require you to slow down and do each one well. If you have been gardening for any length of time, you already have the skills. You just need to redirect them. This is where the Amish separate themselves from nearly every other gardener I have met, and it is where I went wrong for 2 decades. I used to dig a hole, drop in a tomato transplant, sprinkle some granular fertilizer around it, and hope for the best. The Amish do something completely different. They prepare each planting spot weeks before the tomato ever goes in the ground. Here is what they do. They dig a hole about 12 inches deep and 12 inches wide. Into that hole goes a shovelful of well-aged compost, a handful of crushed eggshells, and a scoop of wood ash. They mix it into the native soil right there in the hole, then let it sit. That mixture is doing something critical. The compost feeds the microbial life that makes nutrients available to roots. The eggshells provide slow-release calcium, which is exactly what prevents blossom end rot, that ugly black spot on the bottom of tomatoes that drives gardeners insane. And the wood ash adds potassium, which strengthens cell walls and helps the plant resist disease. Naturally, when planting day comes, they bury the tomato transplant deep, 2/3 of the stem underground, with only the top cluster of leaves above the soil line. Every one of those buried stem nodes develops roots. More roots means more nutrient uptake, a stronger plant and bigger fruit. If you are in zones 5 through 7, plant after your last frost date when nighttime temperatures are consistently above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. In zones 8 and 9, you can push earlier, but watch for late cold snaps. Now, I want to be honest. This takes more effort than tossing a plant in a hole with a handful of Miracle-Gro. But the difference in results is not marginal. It is dramatic. The first year I prepared my holes this way, my brandywines went from producing fruit the size of tennis balls to fruit that genuinely needed 2 hands to hold. Same variety, same garden, different soil preparation. This is the step that makes the biggest visible difference, and it is the one most American gardeners either skip entirely or do wrong. I know because I did it wrong for years. Most of us let our tomato plants grow into big, bushy, sprawling jungles because we think more branches means more fruit. The Amish know the opposite is true. More branches means more fruit, yes, but smaller fruit, weaker fruit, and a plant that exhausts itself by August. Here's what the Amish do with indeterminate tomato varieties, which are the big heirloom types like Brandywine, Cherokee Purple, and Mortgage Lifter. They prune to 1 or 2 main stems. That is it. Every sucker that sprouts in the crotch between the main stem and a leaf branch gets removed. You will know a sucker when you see it. It is that small shoot growing at a 45-degree angle, right where a branch meets the stem. When it is small, you can snap it off with your fingers. If it has gotten thicker than a pencil, use clean pruners to avoid tearing the plant. Check for new suckers every 3 to 4 days during peak growing season because they appear fast, and a sucker you miss today becomes a full branch by next week. Why does this matter so much? Because a tomato plant has a finite amount of energy. When you let every sucker grow, that energy gets divided among dozens of branches, hundreds of flowers, and eventually a pile of small, underwhelming fruit. When you prune to 1 or 2 stems, all of that energy gets concentrated into fewer fruits that grow larger, ripen faster, and taste better. Think of it like a garden hose. Open 3 sprinklers and you get a weak trickle from each one. Close 2 and all the pressure goes to the one that is left. The Amish also top their plants in late summer, about 6 to 8 weeks before the first expected fall frost. Topping means cutting the very top growing point off each stem. This tells the plant to stop making new growth and put everything into ripening the fruit that is already set. In zones 5 and 6, that usually means topping in mid to late August. In zones 7 and 8, you can wait until early September. Inconsistent watering is probably responsible for more tomato problems than any disease or pest. Cracking, blossom end rot, blossom drop, and mealy texture are all linked to the plant getting too much water, then not enough, then too much again. The Amish water their tomatoes the same way every time, deeply and consistently. And it makes an enormous difference. Here is the method. Water at the base of the plant, never from overhead. Overhead watering splashes soil onto the lower leaves, which is exactly how fungal diseases like early blight get started. The Amish usually water early in the morning so the soil absorbs it before the heat of the day. Water deeply, enough to soak the soil 8 to 10 inches down, and then do not water again until the top 2 inches of soil have dried out. For most gardens in most climates, that works out to about 1 to 2 inches of water per week, applied in 1 or 2 deep soakings rather than daily sprinkles. A simple way to check is to push your finger into the soil next to the plant. If it is dry 2 inches down, it is time to water. If it is still damp, leave it alone. The Amish almost always mulch heavily around their tomatoes, 4 to 6 inches of straw or old hay, right after planting. That mulch does 3 things. It holds soil moisture steady between waterings. It keeps the soil temperature even, which roots love. And it prevents soil from splashing up onto leaves during rain. 3 problems solved with 1 practice. If you have been watering your tomatoes a little bit every day, and wondering why they crack or taste watery? This is your answer. Less frequent, deeper watering with heavy mulch. Your tomatoes will be firmer, sweeter, and far less prone to splitting. This is the part that surprises most people. The Amish do not spray. Not organic spray, not chemical spray, nothing. And yet their tomato plants stay healthier than most sprayed gardens I have seen. The reason is prevention. They do not wait for disease to show up and then react. They build the entire system so disease has a hard time getting started in the first place. The first practice is crop rotation. The Amish never plant tomatoes in the same spot 2 years in a row. They follow a minimum 3-year rotation, ideally 4. Tomatoes this year, beans or peas next year, root vegetables the year after, then brassicas like cabbage or broccoli, and then tomatoes again. This breaks the disease cycle because the fungi and bacteria that attack tomatoes survive in the soil over winter. If there is no tomato planted there next spring, those pathogens starve. The second practice is companion planting. The Amish plant basil right alongside their tomatoes, and this is not folklore. Research has shown that basil repels certain aphid species and may help reduce thrip populations. They also plant marigolds at the ends of tomato rows. Marigold roots release a compound that suppresses root knot nematodes in the soil, which are microscopic worms that damage tomato roots and open the door to disease. The third practice is sanitation, and it is the one gardeners skip most often. At the end of each season, the Amish pull every tomato plant out of the ground completely, roots and all. They remove every fallen leaf, every dropped fruit, every piece of plant debris. None of it goes into the compost pile because tomato diseases can survive the composting process. It gets burned or hauled far away from the garden. That cleanup removes the vast majority of disease spores before they can overwinter and reinfect next year's crop. Combine rotation, companions, and sanitation with the deep soil building from step 1, and you have a plant that is naturally strong enough to fight off most of what comes at it. No spray needed. Now, I want to level with you because I will not overpromise. Your first season doing all 4 of these steps, you will see a noticeable improvement, bigger fruit, healthier plants, fewer problems. But the full results compound over time. By year 2, your soil biology is stronger, your rotation is established, and your pruning skills are sharper. That is when people start bringing tomatoes to the county fair and asking me why theirs suddenly look like the ones on the seed catalog cover. I also want to acknowledge something. Not every tomato variety will produce softball-sized fruit. Determinate varieties and smaller fruited types are bred for different purposes. These techniques work best with large, indeterminate heirloom varieties like Brandywine, Mortgage Lifter, Cherokee Purple, Big Beef, and similar types. If you are growing cherry tomatoes, the pruning and soil work will still give you healthier plants and better flavor, but you are not going to get softball-sized sun golds. That is just not what the plant does. If you can only start with one step this season, start with the soil preparation. That single change will produce more visible improvement than anything else on this list. Add the pruning next, then the watering, then build out your rotation and companions over the following seasons. You do not have to change everything overnight. Mache is gut. Do it well, one step at a time. Here's what it comes down to. That Amish woman at the roadside stand was right. There is no secret. There is just care. Deep soil that has been fed properly. Pruning that directs every ounce of energy where it matters. Water that comes steady and deep, not panicked and shallow. And a system of prevention that keeps disease from ever getting a foothold. These are not revolutionary ideas. They are old ideas. The kind your grandmother might have known. The kind the Amish never stopped practicing while the rest of us chase shortcuts. This season, try it their way. Prepare your soil like it matters. Prune those suckers without guilt. Water deeply and mulch heavily. Rotate your beds and plant your basil right next to your tomatoes. And when you slice into your first softball-sized brandywine in July and the juice runs down your arm, come back and tell me about it. I read every comment. This is Ronald Beckett. Happy gardening, and I will see you in the next one.